This is a short video on how to tackle the significance question. My Year 7s are about to have their first assessment, so they will be tackling this question for the first ever time. Within that question, we need to look at the long-term and short-term consequences within history. So let's remind ourselves what they are. Now, short-term is the impact that something or someone has at the time or shortly after. For example, the breakup of the Roman Empire led to England being taken over by tribes. Now, in the long scheme of things, these tribes did not run England for that long. Long-term is the impact something or someone has for a long period of time afterwards, or even after their death. For example, the Anglo Saxons introduced Old English, which influenced the language that we speak today. Now I'm back on Ermin Street, the Roman road, but I'm where it meets Danemead. The word Dane suggests people from Denmark, Viking settlement. So this area shows us the layers of history. The Romans would have used this road, the Anglo Saxons would have also settled in local areas, and the Vikings also invaded here as well. Now, not far from here is the River Lee. The River Lee provided a natural barrier between the Vikings when they invaded in the 9th century and the Anglo Saxons, where King Alfred's men tried to defend their kingdom. With regards to the significance question, let's take the Anglo Saxons as our example. We need to think about the long-term and short-term consequences that they had on England when they arrived. So let's remind ourselves. Now, to complete this quick exercise, read through all of the impacts on the right hand side of the screen. Now, first of all, see if you can put them into one of three categories. Social, to do with people; political, to do with government; or religious, to do with religion, Christianity, or anything else. You then need to think about whether this is a short-term impact or a long-term impact, using those definitions that I gave earlier. To practice those high-level skills, then have a go at gold. What was the Anglo-Saxons' greatest impact in the short term, and what about the long term? And explain your answer. This will really prepare you for that significance question. Now that you've had a chance to have a look at the consequences, I'm sure you will agree that most of them are long term. There's one or two short term ones in there though. For example, the 7 different kingdoms, that did not seem to last that long, maybe a couple of hundred years at the most, but that went later on under the Vikings' rule. There's many long-term ones in there that are still relevant today. For example, the language that we speak.
Wat we gar dana in jar dagum feud kuninga thrimje frunan hutha athalingus ellen fremidon. Oft schild shaving, shaden a threatum, monegum maigthum meru setla oftea.
Now that was a short extract from a poem read out in Old English. You will notice that Old English does sound different to modern English. However, the language has evolved from the words that the Anglo-Saxons brought with them to the language that we speak today. Let's not forget some of the other long-term impacts. The border between England and Wales is still the same border as it was that the Anglo-Saxons created. Now that we've reminded ourselves of some of the impacts that the Anglo-Saxons had on England, let's have a go at the significance question. So the question is, explain the significance of the Anglo-Saxon migration for Britain, and it's worth 8 marks. That means 2 paragraphs or 2 big points. Now I would tackle this question by, in your first paragraph, considering the short-term impacts. In your second paragraph, consider the long-term impacts. Feel free to pause the video and have a go at answering the question yourself. You may or may not choose to use the sentence starters. Now that you've had a chance to attempt this significance question, let's have a look at an answer that got 4 marks. Let's see how this student structured their answer in a step-by-step approach. One reason that the Anglo-Saxon migration was significant for Britain was that it separated England into 7 different kingdoms. For example, this would have been different to how the Romans had previously ruled Britain, which was under just one strong central government. This was significant because the 7 kingdoms were rivals to each other. However, sometimes the most powerful king would force all of the others to accept him as their leader, and would be given the title Bretwalda, meaning ruler of Britain. This had a short-term impact because England was ruled by just one king by 1066 AD. Therefore, the Anglo-Saxon migration was significant in dividing England into 7 different kingdoms following nearly 400 years of being ruled as just one territory. Another reason that the Anglo-Saxon migration was significant for Britain was because it created the border between England and Wales that still exists today. For example, although England and Wales have similar cultures, they do both have their own languages. This was significant for Britain because many of the words we speak in English are influenced by the Anglo-Saxons, so this was a long-term social impact. Therefore, the Anglo-Saxon migration was significant for creating the shape of England and Wales that still exists today. Whilst Old English is not the same as modern English, the Anglo-Saxons did influence many words that we still use. I hope this video has been helpful. Until next time, stay safe and I'll see you soon.